Okay, thank you. Welcome again. One of the things that I hear a lot from your comments on the side is that it's all about relationships. Your questions all have to do about relationships, building relationships with your administrative team, building relationships with your parents, and how to bring more parents to your school sites, and how to build that culture of actually having a team at your school site. One of the things that we do when I hold a meeting, first of all, getting the parents there. Like I said to some folks in the other meeting, I kind of make an announcement that it's mandatory to be at this meeting, and I just shoot for the stars and see how many parents I get, especially when I was new at the school. And once they see what you have in place, they feel little by little, you'll see like 2 or 3 parents show up, right? And it's going to take a lot on your part, and some of you may not want to do this. Thank you, sir. But what I do, and I still do because I thought it would phase out, but it hasn't, that I hold 2 parent meetings on a weekly basis. One during the school day, it's on Thursdays, during the school day, and once after school at 6 o'clock. And my colleagues are already home watching the baseball game at that time. But you have to stay, you have to do it, because some folks work. And they want to. Once you build this, you got to put your teeth into it, and you have to show that you really care. Because if you set this up and you get the momentum of the parents showing up to your school to learn about their boy or girl's education and how they can help out, you need to be there. You need to be there to show that you're going to hold these meetings, and they want to hear from you. And so we have a connected Blackboard. It's called Blackboard Connected messaging system that I personally get on there, and I invite the parents to these meetings. Even though they've been going on for years, I do this on a weekly basis. I also tell them what events are going to happen that week. It's a lot of work, I know, and sometimes I could delegate it if I'm not around, but it's important that the principal speaks to them. And you have these meetings, and you tell them exactly what you're going to share out, and they show up. After a while, you start getting you start building momentum, and you can't let it go. You can't slack off and expect that it's going to continue. Once in a while, we're all busy. You may not be able to show up to the 6 o'clock meeting, but it has to be. It doesn't have to be. It can't be a common thing for you to do. You have to have somebody there in your place once in a while, but it should always be you. If you're willing to do that, you're going to see that you start getting more buy-in. And a lot of schools have community liaisons as well, or parent liaisons at their school sites. You need to have the right person on that job. Don't just hire that person because that was the most outspoken parent that was negative, and now you hire them so they can be quiet. No, you need to have somebody that really has those PR skills, okay, to welcome them. They have to have the same vision that you have. When I first started, I used to help out other schools as an operations coordinator, and I remember going to elementary schools where they used to have me go mend the arguments or the problems that the teacher or the parents had with administrative staff there. And I would actually see in one school, I saw a white line painted a few feet from the main entrance. And I saw all these parents out there. And I walked up before I met with the principal, and I told somebody, what is that? Because I noticed they wouldn't go beyond that line. What's that line doing there? And the custodian told me, the principal had me paint that there so that the parents know they can't cross that line. Okay, so how are you going to improve that? You're not going to improve relationships that way. So we had that thing taken out, and I had to talk to the principal. Principal was very, very intimidated by parents because we know that parents have a lot of rights, and I'm glad they do. And once you start working with them and understanding what they want, what they need, and you allow them to vent, one of the tasks that I tell my administrators is a parent's going to come in here because they're upset about something their child told them. The last place a parent wants to be is at a school site, right? Because they're working, they have other things to do, especially if there's a complaint. They're coming in here because they're angry about something the kid said. So your job, they tell me, my administrators say, well, how do I know I was successful with that parent? You know how you're going to know? If they walk out of your office happier than when they walked in. Okay? I want that parent to walk out shaking your hand and thanking you for the time, because most of the time it's just a venting process, the venting process they have to go through. They just have to vent, and sometimes it's just miscommunication. The child wasn't very honest with them about a certain grade or about turning in homework. We get to the bottom of it and we realize that we're on the same ground. We're there to help their child, and we welcome them every opportunity. I say, look, and don't forget, on Thursday we have a meeting. If you want to, any way you can help me, if you want to help me, be at that meeting. I take advantage of all that. Be at that meeting. They show up, and bring a friend. Bring your husband, bring somebody with you. And they do. Sometimes you don't see them again after that one time. Sometimes you see them continue with if they like what they see. But it's building that relationship with them. And you must have somebody that's your liaison that can help you reach out to the parents. Be at the front door every morning welcoming parents. You saw me at the front of the school in that video, and sometimes if I have something important, I have a half sheet when parents come in and drop their kids off, and these are teenagers, right? And I go out there and I give them a half sheet. Don't forget, there's a meeting this week. Don't forget your kids' FAFSA is the due date's coming up, or don't forget their college application. Whatever it is, we're out there passing out the information. And if they are, and then we have another half sheet that for those parents that drop their kids off a little late, we give them the reminder about this ed code and about school policy and how they can't be missing so many days of school, because we make them accountable. If a kid misses more than 10 days, if they're absent 10 days their senior year, we don't let them walk on stage. They can't go to the prom. They can't go to grad night. All those fun things that they do, that's 10 days. We're going to drop it to 7 days next year. And I'll tell you, they're saying, you're crazy. It's 10 days. Kids are absent all the time. Let's do 10 days. And so, you know what? They miss up to as many as they can, 9 days or 8 days. They go as far as they can. And then we have an appeal committee team, we have appeals for those that went over the 10. Some had emergencies. Some they had to go to the hospital, medical emergencies, or something with their personal lives or something. So we have those appeal, all those things in place take a lot of work. Okay, and so you need to have all those things, and hopefully Chuck can get you a copy of this. It should be online, and we describe a lot of the things that we do. But so that's just one example. So there again, when we have that appeal, we meet with the parents, and usually that parent has younger kids in that school. And they learn from that experience, the kid can't miss school, because at the end you're gonna be held accountable for that. And so that's another thing. We also have service learning hours. So these kids have to do community service, 100 hours we ask for. So they help out at their churches, they help out at the pools in the summer, they help out at the parks, and the parents sometimes come to us and ask us if they can have them do something in their little business or other things. So there's always communication with the parents and building that relationship. So the kid comes out well-rounded. 100 hours of, I wish it was more, but 100 hours their 11th grade, and 100 hours their senior year of service to the community. And it has to be documented. So they're on it. The kids are on it. Recycling projects. They'll create their own. Clean up at the beach. I wonder about that one, right? They clean up at the beach. We're at the beach for 2 hours and we're cleaning up. Well, let me see some video. Let me see something. You know, we're not going to be negative about it. But so we always work around all those things. But having that, and if you can't fund a parent liaison at your school, find a parent that's very proactive in your community, and give them that. Even though you can't fund it, maybe you can help them out somehow. But if they're there all the time, you always have those parents that are always at your school. Well, empower them with a little leadership activity or a leadership role, and say, I want you to be in charge of all the parents. Can you help me bring more parents? And you'll be surprised what that right person will do. The wrong person won't do anything. But that right person will, wow, the principal wants me to do that, or that teacher wants me to, I'm going to prove to them I can do this. And they'll go out of their way to help out and send the word out there that the school needs help. That's one of the things to do. But every meeting you have with the parents has to be, you have to have some kind of activity. You have to have them involved with something, because it'll be the last time you see them if you have a boring Title I meeting, for example, or a categorical program meeting, and it's just very basic information, or you just want to select or have an election for your parent advisory council. You need to add some other things into that agenda that will make it invigorating, something that they need to come out of there with just remembering something. Like a lady said earlier, she's not here now. She says, I have all those systems in place that you have at your school, Mr. Huerta, but one thing I'm going to come out with from your presentation is we have to have courage, right, as leaders. So if you can do something for these parents where they can come out with some message of inspiration, they'll come back. They'll come back. Some tools that you can give them to help their kids, and we do that all the time. We build a lot of capacity with our parents. So on the parent part, that's a good thing. But as a leader, and I do this with the parents too, and I'm going to do this with you now. As a leader, you have to kind of break the ice, and you have to have courage to do what you do. And so one of the things that we do is we tell our story one-on-one. You're going to pair up with somebody right now, hopefully somebody you don't know, and you're going to tell your story to them, but I'm going to model to you what I do. So you tell your story, and they get to understand what you're all about, okay? They understand what you're all about, and then pretty soon they feel connected with you. And that's the first way to start the connection, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's not an accident that it happens. So I'm going to share a story with you. And my theme will be, what got you? Most of you are educators, I understand. And if you're not, it's okay. We don't get paid enough. If you look at our hours that we put into our work, we're getting like $1 an hour if we're lucky, okay? The schools are not financed. The funding's not there. There's always a problem. But what drives us? Why are we the special group? I know it's a calling, but let's dig deeper like Joyce said. What drives us to put up with all this? To work with these kids that are troubled from home. We get angry at their parents. Darn it, why didn't they teach them better? Why don't they be responsible parents and stay with them and nurture them like they should? We don't get those kids sometimes. When we do, we're lucky, okay? But what drives us? What's that inside? Something sparked in our life at one time that makes you want to do this every day, okay? So think about that. Think about that. About injustices maybe. Something you witnessed. Something you lived. Hopefully it was something that you saw when you were growing up, or when you were a child, or when you became an adult. Something that keeps you going every day. That keeps you in education. And there's a couple of things for me, but one of the things that drives me, and it goes along with what Joyce said. I remember a long time ago, I never forgot this. That's why I told you that story about that one boy that was 5 years old, and he was left at the bus stop, and his mother promised to come back, never did. He never forgot that. Now he's going to Dartmouth, and he's going to be a great man, great citizen. When I was a child, I remember 5 years old. I remember my mother is an immigrant from Mexico, and she was very poor. Her mother died at a young age, so she needed to work for a living. So she tells me of a story when she was 16 years old. She started working in the capital of the state where she lived, and she was cleaning a house. She was cleaning the house of a very lucrative, very famous politician. And part of her duties was to take his kids to the local school in the morning. And the kids had a uniform, right? Nice little uniform. And you know, in some countries, the ones that go to school are the ones that have money, because they don't give you the free books or the free meals or the free transportation. So she remembers watching that, watching the kids go and watching the kids play tennis, the older kids. And she always said to herself, you know, one day I hope that my kids, because I know she realized I'm not going to do this, 17 years old or 16. Because one day when I have kids, I want my kids to be able to wear a uniform like that. That's so cool. It's so neat. It shows so much progress. And she would see the interactions. The kids would come back from school and do their homework. And she always loved that. She only went up to the second grade. And so move the clock forward. She's in the United States. She starts working. She's doing some good stuff. She gets married. She has children. So I'm the firstborn. So when I'm 5 years old, I remember her combing my hair and pulling my hair and combing it. And I'm saying, why is my mom getting me all fancied up for? She goes, you know what? We're gonna go take you to the local Catholic school down the street. It's an elementary school, and I've been speaking to my neighbors, and I hear them, and I see them, and that's a really good school. I don't want you to go to that elementary, the public school next door to it. I want you to go across the street to that Catholic school. Okay, St. Alfonso's. And so, okay. I was scared, right? I was more scared of leaving my mother than going to any school. I didn't care what school I was going to. So I remember her going in there, taking me, and I sat in the office in the lobby, and she walked in with the principal. They were all nuns. They were all nuns there. And she came out, and she grabs me by the hand, and she takes me away. She takes me home. Because it was before school started, before the school year started. And I remember, and I never forgot, never had the courage to ask her, but till I got older. She was, tears were coming down her eyes all the way home. Okay? And later on, and that was ninth, I don't know what grade I was, I asked her, Mom, you never told me why. And I never went to that school. I was never in that school. I went to the one across the street, the elementary school, public school. And I said, Mom, can you tell me what happened that day? It always stuck in my mind. I've never seen you cry but once in your life. And that was the time at that point. And then she says, you know what happened? I went into that elementary school that met with the principal. And as soon as she heard me speak, she said, I'm sorry, ma'am. You don't speak English, so your son will not be successful here. We're just setting him up for failure. He's not going to make it here. These kids are second generation, third generation. We have all these kids. They all know English, and their parents know it too. And they're going to be able to help, but you won't be able to help your parents, just like the gentleman said earlier at the table. So I'm sorry, ma'am, but he's not accepted here. So that broke her heart, right? So that elementary, let me tell you, so I went to that elementary school, and then I went to the middle school, and I lived in the area where I work now, Garfield. But let me tell you the story. So when it was time for me to go to Garfield, my father said, no, son, you're not going to Garfield. There's nothing but gangs there, and there's fighting there, and the academic level is really low. That's the school I work at now, right? That was a perception, okay? So he said, you're not going there. I'm going to send you to an all-boys Catholic school, Cantwell High School in Montebello, about 7 miles down the road. And I said, no, come on, Dad. I went to all these schools, my friends. That's the problem, son. Look who you're hanging around with, all these knuckleheads. You're not going to amount to anything. Well, how are you going to pay for this, Dad? Don't worry about it. I'll find a way to pay for your tuition. It broke my heart, okay, because that was a perception of Garfield. Now, if we were to move the clock forward, my father would be one of those parents that are lined up around the block to get into Garfield because of the high academic standards we have now. And that's what I have every August 1st. A lot of parents we didn't have the space for are all around the corner trying to see if somebody didn't show up because they want their student there, because they know what colleges are looking for. Colleges are coming to our school to recruit the best because we've represented well. But anyway, so I didn't go to Garfield. I went to Cantwell. Well, guess what? Cantwell is the feeder pattern for that little Catholic school that didn't accept me. Okay? So you go there through the 8th grade, and then you go to Cantwell prepared. A Cantwell man. Verite age, act manfully. Right? So you go up there, and you go there in the 9th grade, and that's what you do. Well, I'll tell you what. I ended up second in my class. From all those kids I would have been in school with, those were the knuckleheads. They weren't focused in school. So it's funny how life is. And my mother didn't know that was a track. I told her, Mom, did you realize what happened? When she explained to me, even though they didn't accept me, I excelled and I blew them away. I was better than all those kids that went to that school. So I made her feel better years later. But to see my mother turned away, to see a parent turned away, we all want the best for our kids. We all want the best for our kids. But if we close the doors for them, what chance do they have? And I'll be darned if I'm going to close any door for any student in my school. So that's the drive I have every single day. So working with these kids, I don't care what level they're at, we're going to build them up, we're going to make them believe in themselves, and they're going to be successful. It's the last thing we do. So that's my drive, okay? And that's what keeps me going, remembering that. So now, that's my story to you. It's about courage, right? Sharing with you. Now, what I want you to do is to stand up, find a partner. Please, I'm going to trust that you're going to find somebody you don't know. Introduce yourselves. And I want you to, and once, I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then I'm going to time you, and I'm going to have person A, one of you, once you're with a pair, you say who's A and who's B. Person A will share a story for 3 or 4 minutes, okay? What drives you to do what you do? Whether it's the ministry, whether it's working with the kids in tough neighborhoods, or your especially education is what I want to hear. So tell them what is the drive that gets you going. And then we'll stop. Then I'll give a chance for B to share out. And it stays there. I'm not going to have you come up here and share with everyone. But I will ask for volunteers about what you learned from the other person if you would like to share, because it's a learning experience. Okay? So please, if you do me the honor of just walking around, finding someone to connect with. Introduce yourselves. It's about coming out of our comfort zone. Okay, can I have your attention? Let's wrap it up and let's get back to our seats. How much time do we have, sir? 20 minutes, okay. So I was sitting with a group of people here, and very powerful what I heard, very powerful. And I would really love it if you guys have the courage, here we go, the theme, to maybe come and share at the microphone something you heard from the other person that really touched you. And what is it that drove them? You don't have to identify the person. We don't know who you spoke with. But just what is it that's in their heart and their soul that keeps them doing what they're doing? Any volunteers to go up first? Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to have to adjust this because I'm short. Okay, I spoke with Babetta, but I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to tell you. She works in Garland ISD, and she spoke about a sense of social justice. And she was Teach for America, and was just going to do Teach for America for 2 years and get her money and get out, and make some real money in the real world, and go to law school and do all that. And she really found a calling in education and a sense of just doing what's right. And education, the thing that spoke to me that she said is, education is kind of the great equalizer and provides opportunity for everybody. So, sorry I ratted you out a little bit.
All right, good job.
I talked to a teacher who realized that children in her class didn't have shoes, so she would secretly put shoes in their backpack to take care of them. I was impressed.
Wow, all right. Yeah, we want to hear it. We want to hear it.
There was a quote that was said by the person I visited with that her mom would say to her. And the quote, I think, is so powerful because her mom had some really hard things going on that she didn't like what she saw in herself, but she saw something better for her daughter. And so her quote was, be a leader, even if you're only leading yourself. And I think that's something we don't, as educators, we look at the family from an outside, and we make judgments about things that we don't understand, and we never realize that parents really have great dreams for their kids sometimes. And if we can understand that, we may not see the whole thing, but their parents want for them probably as much or more than we want for them sometimes. And we have to honor that it's coming from someplace different, but it's still powerful to those kids. And to value that will connect kids back to us so that we can help them.
Thank you. All right.
I guess this piggybacks on what you said. The person I talked to had a conversation with her staff members saying that she knows a lot about brain research. She's studied it, how kids develop, how things move forward, and she's positive that there's absolutely no brain research anywhere that says the color of your brain makes a difference in the way it interacts and works and learns.
Okay, right here. That was me. And we're rule breakers. I'm a superintendent at Phoenix Charter School, and when I introduced myself to her, I found out that she was a teacher in Greenville ISD, which is where I'm at. And so we were able to exchange a lot of commonalities and talk about the barriers that were present when she was teaching and the barriers that are still present dealing with cultural biases and that halo effect. And so I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to sit next to each other, because she works at Region 10, and so she's going to help me help my teachers. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, good connection.
I was enriched by speaking with a first-year teacher, especially since I'm getting ready to retire at the end of the year. But her passion for teaching came as a result of being a camp counselor with students with severe health problems, terminal actually, and they only wanted to be normal for 1 week at camp. And that motivation to help them be normal for a week generalized to wanting to help children be as normal as they can be in the classroom, and I'm excited about that teacher.
Wow, great stories.
I talked with a young lady that I think I'll move my daughter and her family to where she is so that they can have her for a teacher. She was homeschooled and grew up with a loving, caring, nourishment and family that she thought everyone had. And as she became older and people said, "You want to be a teacher?" And she said, "Oh, no, no, no." And then she found out that's what she needed to do, because there were lots of children that didn't have what she had had, and that's what she wanted to give, and give them the encouragement of self-value.
Beautiful, all right. Testing. Anyone else? You don't have to walk up to the microphone. You can say it from there, but please, let's find it in yourself to share out. This is nice.
I spoke with Becky, who wants to develop curriculum specifically designed to create within the children the need to think, the need to put this into practical, active use, because that's what puts them in connection with the world. I was delighted to talk to her.
I spoke with a vice principal who was deeply moved by influenced by a teacher when he came to America. Los Angeles, scared to death, went in the front door and beat his mother back home going out the back door. I mean, he was that scared. And when he finally went in the front door to stay, the teacher said, "I will stay with you. You don't need to be afraid." And helped him learn English, and he still remembers his name, Mr. Hernandez. In fact, he went to his retirement party, apparently, so, yeah.
Wow, great. Anyone else that wants to share, maybe? You know, I was sitting with a group of people, and it kind of echoes what Mr. Hubbard said. A young lady also identified one of her teachers as her hero, because one day she had suffered a lot of, her parents had a tough evening, a lot of domestic abuse, and her, along with her two younger siblings, didn't eat that night, didn't sleep that night, the night before. So she walked into school and she put her head on the table and she was just like tired. And the teacher said, "You know what, young lady?" She blurted out something that wasn't something normal for her. So she said, "I want to see you in my office after class." So eventually the young lady, the young girl, she was about 11 then, she went into the teacher's office and said, the teacher said, "You're not like this. This isn't you. What is it that's happening?" And she just broke down and started bawling, just crying. It's letting that out. It's all about letting that out. And she shared the story, and she goes, here's some crackers, here's an apple, and I want you to stay in here and sleep. And then she also informed the teacher that she was going to have next about the same situation. She never forgot that. She never forgot that. And this young lady had everything stacked against her, living in the projects, being discriminated against in school, looked down upon. And now she's writing a book. She has I think she's getting her doctorate, or already has her doctorate degree, and she's writing a book, and it's an amazing story. And it's about that teacher. Whether it's a teacher in a school or a teacher in a ministry, anywhere, that teacher that guides you in the right direction, that gives you just that word of advice. They all need it. They all need it, and we see that at our school. If you're going to say something positive to a child. Don't say something negative, because they hear that all the time, unfortunately, in some of our schools. They hear that positive thing, it stays with them. It stays with them. But you know what? They also, when they graduate, they also remember that one negative statement that somebody made to them. They'll never forget that. And for some of them, it's a driving force to move forward and prove that person wrong. Okay, but those are the wrong reasons to do things. But I think that it shows here. So that activity, folks, let me tell you, when you do it, I do that with my parents, for those folks that want to build relationships with their parents. Hello. Testing. When they want to build relationships with their parents, I do that at a parent meeting. And I would do so many other things, and like I told you, something positive in that agenda. I don't put that on an agenda. I just put something like parent activity. And when I see enough parents, boom, I go, this is my moment. And I have them do this, and you should see the bonding that takes place. And then every time that we meet, we have another topic. Today, the topic was, what drives you to do what you do? It could be a different topic the next time. And then pretty soon, sometimes I don't have room for a parent activity, and they want a parent activity. They want to continue that conversation. And then pretty soon they bond together, and they keep coming, and it just builds a community. I do that with my teachers. So try to imagine the teachers that I taught to you, I described to you, that were naysayers. At first, I had them do this. And, some left the room, some came back. But the majority of them did it, and it's helped. We all understand each other. And we all have to be courageous to share our story. And for some, it's not easy. For some, it takes maybe the third time to do it. With the teachers, I don't do it that much. But one of the things, too, that I was sharing at my table that we do is that one of the ladies was telling me that her staff at one point really couldn't connect with the students that they were teaching, different ethnicity. And they really weren't understanding. And so one of the things that we had the same situation at our school. So when we have professional development, we ask parents, because now I have a connection with these parents, I said, how many of you would volunteer your home? Because some of our teachers don't understand the way your living conditions. And so we have projects down the street. We have regular homes. We have people that rent, people that own. So we selected a few from each. And they were really gracious. They tidied it up really nice. So we had a professional development. We went over some norms with our teachers. This is what you do. You be respectful. You do this. You do that. We took a bus. We funded a bus. We took the teachers. We called it the tour of East LA. Okay? So we went to these homes, and they walked in there, and I'm not kidding you, there were teachers in tears, because they knew how many siblings that child in their class had whose home they were visiting. And to think that they all live there. And they would ask, well, where do they do their homework? Well, really, they can't do it here. Most of the time, they do it at the library down the street. But now that they don't fund the library as much, sometimes we borrow my neighbor's home so they can do their homework, because they don't all fit here. And they have it structured. These parents are very efficient. They have it structured so that a certain time of the day they're doing their homework. Regardless of their living conditions, they have that structure. They know the importance. And those are some of the tools that we share with them. I always make at least 2 hours every day. I know they have to do chores and they have to do housework and all this, but give them 2 hours of homework, a study time where everything stops. Another thing I tell them is always model for your kids that reading is important. Every day you should stop what you're doing and go in the living room, wherever you're at, and just read. It could be a comic book, it could be the magazine, it could be a novel, it could be a book. In Spanish, if you only read Spanish, just model for the kids and let them also participate in that. So it was so sweet to see those living conditions, yet they have those things in place. And that's going to take them far. So it opened the eyes to many of our teachers, and they were able to understand more what was going on and what they had. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our stories. I'm not going to share what the Reverend and I talked about simply because I'm more inclined to share with you that there is a book called Same Kind of Different as Me. Have many of you read it? Okay. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because share it with your teams, with your staff, with your teaching unit. And it goes back to what Mr. Huerta had us do with sharing our story. It's about the stories, it's about differences, and it's about love and empathy. And instilling that in our teachers all the way up through senior leadership is what will drive the change, which is exactly what you have done at your campus. So if there's any book you read this summer, please pick that one up. It's in paperback or hardback version.
What's the title again?
Same Kind of Different as Me. It's a true story that took place here in Fort Worth, Texas. Same Kind of Different as Me. Okay.
Great. I'm going to have my administrative staff read that book. That's great. So we always do that too with my staff. We have book study and we read things and we share out and we learn together. Any questions you may have at this time? Thank you. Let's give all of us a round of applause, each one of you. Thank you for having the courage to share your story. And some of you to come up here and talk to all of us. Something that you have, you're still, is there another opportunity? I'm going to be with a part of a panel. That's different. Okay, so any questions you may have that maybe are not answered? Yes. Okay, so I spoke to some of you that are in the special ed department at your schools. You know there's different rules for special ed students sometimes. So we do RSP, the resource students. It's all inclusive. And we do an inclusive system where they're in the general ed, in the general ed classes as much as possible. We have autism classes as well. Those kids sometimes, and some of them are high achieving, and so they're able to take some classes. We always try them out. Sometimes the parent says, you know what, I'd rather you not do that because it didn't work out. We have classes where kids are identified as from severe to mild to moderate, and then moderate to severe. And we have 500 kids at our school. So think about it, 2,500, 500 of those kids are in the special ed department. And so, and some of them have, a lot of disabilities, but they're respected at lunch. They're all hanging out with everyone else, and no one teases them. No one gives them a hard time. They're actually helping each other. One kid with autism was just crowned the prom prince, so a very popular boy. And so it's a beautiful place because it's a very respectful environment. But right, we look at their IEPs, their individual educational plan, and we see what accommodations we have to make. And we follow that to a T, and because we're under the microscope, all schools with the special ed litigation, so we follow the rules on that. And parents of special ed students are there too, making sure that everything's okay with their student. And but we do include them in general ed classes if it's something that's allowed and the parents are requesting. We always do that. But before we do that, we sit down with the teacher. We don't surprise the teacher, and we'll say, this young man is in special ed, and they all have their rosters, and they're identified, and they'll be coming in with an adult to kind of monitor. Now, the adult doesn't just sit with that kid because we don't want that student to feel different. Most of the kids, I'll tell you, they think that adult is a TA for the class, and they'll ask questions, and they'll go and answer that, but the focus is that one student. And so that's what we do. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. And there's a 3-tier approach, and I asked Mr. Hubbard to see if he can get you. Everything's in here, and everything's in here. What we do, it's our Bible. And somebody came in, the California Endowment came, and they wanted to know that answer. They wanted an answer to that question as well. And why, if you're not suspending, what's happening to these kids? And so we have a 3-tier approach. So first of all, just let me tell you this before I go into detail. So because of our success at our school, our district, our leadership at Central, the superintendent, second largest district in the United States, they now banned suspensions for willful defiance. You can't do that anymore starting this year. So it's a great thing if you think about it. But where they missed the boat, they didn't give before they came up with this ruling and this vote, they didn't give anyone tools. They didn't build capacity. What do you do now? Okay, I can't suspend them. What do I do? So now they're trying to go back and do all these trainings and things. But it's a 3-tier approach. We work together. First, you have and it's all written down. You have a contact with the student. Obviously, we all know that. I'm preaching to the choir. If that doesn't work, we then look at what's going on. We send them to the counselor. The counselor pulls them out of class. We don't take them out of class during that period, but the counselor will summons them out. The kid gets a summons, maybe in a different class. Nobody knows why he's moving out. We don't want to making him feel different or her different. They get summons out. No one knows why. They go and speak to the counselor, usually during the conference period of that teacher. They talk about what happened. See, it's about personnel again. We funded personnel, so it's expensive sometimes. And so they sit down and they talk about it. Usually it's resolved there. It's miscommunication. But if it's not, then we have the counselor, the student, the teacher, the parent, and then the parent has to come in. And sometimes we can't find the parents. Well, I have an administrator that I gave the task to. He's a rookie, so I make him do this. He has to find the parent. He has to go look for where that parent's working, and sometimes they're working as a mechanic. He goes in there and he tells them, I need to talk to you about your student. And he talks, hey, well, my boss won't let me go. He'll talk to the boss. The next day they come in. We do whatever we can. It's a really tight-knit community. So then they come in, they talk about it, and usually if it's got to that level, it's going to stop when you get the father or the mother there. Then if it's an issue with the parents that are, like the story I heard about domestic abuse, we hear it there too. And now we have a school psychologist involved. So we have discipline review teams. We have all these support teams at our school. It takes the coordination of all these services and so it's, and see, but I tell you that about our school, but if you go to my neighboring high school, they're not doing that. The student will always return to class. The student will always remain in school. We're not giving our problem to anyone else. That's our philosophy. So we need to work with that student. And so after those things are done, we usually work with them and talk to them. Sometimes it gets to the point where the kid is way behind credits because he just moved in. He hasn't acclimated to the culture, or she hasn't, and just doesn't fit in, wants out, has only accumulated 10 credits in 2 years from the other school. Sometimes we offer them alternative schooling where they can make up their credits somewhere else, but with the contract that they're coming back to us once they reach that level of when they make up their credits. But yeah, it's intensive. We have to work with that. But see, once you build that culture of the school, where at first you have to deal with all those little nuances and details, but once you build the culture and it's the momentum drives, that's minimal. There's a system at work, and those occurrences don't happen all the time. Yes, one more because they're telling me time's up. You know, I think there is because they told me it was going to be online. You found it. Oh, thank you. Please look at it. How did you find it? What's the? And it looks like this, right? The title is Creating Supportive Environments. Okay, so just Google that. Creating supportive environments, and then put Garfield High School, and you'll find it. It's awesome. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.